Welcome, Scott and Brett. You just hosted an offshore energy conference with Westwood Energy at Bloomberg's New York headquarters in New York. Scott, what were the most important high-level takeaways from the conference?
Thanks, Roger. So I'd say the most important takeaway is that we see a foundation forming to support a multi-year recovery in offshore drilling, and we're really coming off an 8-year period from 2014 to 22 where we've seen weakness, and now I think with oil prices where they are, near $90 a barrel, you can pretty much make money in any offshore basin in the world. And in addition to that, we've seen a near 50% decline in the number of rigs that are out there in the marketplace. So I think that combination essentially creates a tightness within the market in general and sets the stage for a recovery that should continue for years to come.
And Brett, when you're looking at the international majors and national oil companies, where do you see them investing internationally?
Sure. Thanks, Roger. So from an international oil company and national oil company perspective more broadly, I think to start, it's important to look at capital allocation for these companies more broadly. And the capital allocation mantra over the next few years is one of capital discipline. And with that, there are additionally some new pulls on capital, being low carbon investments and greater share of free cash flow being distributed. And with that in mind, looking specifically at where upstream oil and gas capital is being allocated to boost production is increasingly allocated to offshore, specifically being because these regions offer a low cost of supply with a break even in the $30 to $40 a barrel range. And similarly, they have low carbon intensity, which when you're making long cycle investments like those offshore, this again meets the cost of capital threshold and similarly the low carbon intensity threshold.
And Scott, where are the key opportunities and risks offshore?
I think the first or the strongest opportunities in the marketplace today are probably in South America, notably Brazil. Petrobras has probably been amongst the most active tenderers for offshore rigs, and that looks to have the most visibility for strength in the near term. We've also seen increased exploration activity in neighboring markets like Guyana and Suriname, but South America in general and Brazil in particular, I'd say, is the most offers the most opportunity. And in terms of weakness, I'd say the North Sea, Northern Europe in general, and the UK has been struggling with uncertainty regarding taxation of oil and gas companies. And until that gets resolved, I think we're likely to see a little bit of uncertainty hover over that market, and we might see some more rigs move to other offshore markets, harsh environment markets such as Australia and Namibia. But I'd ask you, Brett, where you see the most opportunity potentially amongst the large oil and gas companies that you cover.
We have 3 regions that we've identified as the leaders over the next 5-6 years. And similar to what you said, the first of which being Brazil offshore, second of which being Guyana, and the third of which being the U.S. Gulf of Mexico. So offshore Brazil, we're slated to add over 2 million barrels a day of capacity by 2028. A lot of that is being led by the Brazilian national oil company Petrobras, with some international oil companies associated with stakes as well. In Guyana, we're set to reach over 1 million barrels a day of production by 2027, and that's Exxon, Hess, and CNOOC. And then in the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of the opportunities are tieback related, so existing platforms where we're expanding the capacity of those platforms, again, at a low cost per barrel, which is why they're within the near-term outlook.
And Scott, just finally, you did a fascinating fireside chat with Transocean's Roddy McKenzie. What were your key takeaways from that discussion?
Yeah, no, I would think the biggest one is the fact that they're approaching the market from a very rational long-term perspective. And I think the last time we saw a large upturn in the market, we saw too much capacity, too much new rigs being built without contracts to support them, and Transocean's definitely adopting a more conservative approach in terms of adding rigs to the marketplace. And coincidentally enough, we saw them announce shortly after the event plans to acquire a new stranded new build that was initiated several years ago and was remained in a shipyard in Asia since that time. And so they're going to deploy that. That's going to go to work in Brazil under a long-term contract. And most importantly as well, the presentation confirmed our expectation that we won't see any new build activity occur in the marketplace for quite a while.
Scott and Brett, thank you for your time. It was a fascinating conference.